quickly before we start, so I've asked Keta to do a quick exercise with us. So just in terms of getting the energy right for the session. I saw him do it the other day and I was like, yeah, Chief, you must come and do this at Marketing Fridays. I know he's got a different name for it, but I call it the tap tap.
Yeah, no, it's right. It's called the tap tap.
So he's going to come through, do the tap tap to get the energy right, and then we're going to start. So you'll just have a minute to come through.
Keta, marketing at South Point, but I'm also a social entrepreneur. So I've got my own purpose brand called Let's Folk It Out, and I focus a lot on personal development. So the exercise I'm about to do with you is in light of that, right? So it's called tap tap. It's very simple, right? I'm going to say, today I give you the gift of beauty. And then I'm going to say tap tap. Your response is I receive. So after every tap tap, all you say is I receive. Are we together? Okay, let's just try the tap tap part. Tap tap.
I receive.
Tap tap.
I receive.
Tap tap.
I receive.
Today I bless you with the gift of understanding why you are here. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today I encourage you to open your mind and learn. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today I encourage you to connect with somebody new. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today I challenge you to appreciate yourself. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today I challenge you to learn something new. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today I want you to extend yourself out of your comfort zone. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today do not be shy to say something that you feel is not right. Tap tap.
I receive.
Today do not be afraid to express your mind. Tap tap.
I receive.
And today do not be afraid to be who you are. Tap tap.
I receive.
And just like that, we are ready to start.
Woo! Alright, cool. So as we start, I'm gonna circulate these around, right? So just open that. So these is just like markers and post-it notes, right? So the idea is that if something comes to you while we're having the session, right? You wanna not jot something down, just put it down. Why I've got markers and post-its is that post-its are a reminder of something that you learned today, and this to say be bold with your thoughts. Okay, so those are bold markers. So I'm just gonna pass that around. So grab a marker, and then just on the post-its, just kind of grab just like 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, whatever the case is, and then just pass it around. Okay. Awesome. So thank you, Zubeida, for coming through. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think I came through to the BRANDTRUTH offices. Was it last week?
It was last week.
Last week. And I was saying to her that the work that they're doing and the culture that they've got going, and I think it's really an amazing story there. And I thought, listen, it's somebody that we really need to bring through, and it's this kind of stories we need to learn from. They're doing amazing work. They've been having phenomenal growth. I think I don't want to get in too much so that she'll maybe touch on it better. But yeah, it's just on that. And thank you so much for coming through, spending time with us, and sharing.
Thank you.
And we all have questions, so let's get to it. Okay. So
I'm taking 5 questions only today.
then you're done.
Then I'm done. How's everybody doing? You're good. Good. So I've been practicing for this day for 30 days already. So every day. It's finally here. Thank you, Nico, for inviting me to this incredible platform. And thanks to every single person that's come through today. You actually paid money to come see me speak. It's the first time. Also, thank you for sacrificing your time. I know you could be stuck in traffic or in the office checking up on Facebook or checking up on emails. You would have been doing that, but you came to see me today. So I'd like to just thank you and extend gratitude for that. It's the first time I'm going to be speaking for an entire hour, so I don't want to do that. I'd rather you guys engage and ask questions as I go along. How I'm going to start this is I'm going to introduce you to who I am and give you context of the world that I was brought up in. I think somebody wants to get in. Just to give you a frame of reference of the kind of world that was then and to bring you to where we are now. Okay, so I hope you like the theme and what I've called this talk. I changed it a couple of times over the 30 days. It went from a revolution of advertising to, I think I went through about 5 titles. This title came up last night towards 5 o'clock. I was like, this sounds okay. And it's a nice way to end Women's Month, right? So thank you once again to Nico, and let's go. So first of all, I was not born free, believe it or not. I was brought up in KZN. I was born and bred in KZN. And if it, yo, what's up, homie? And I'm sure every one of you is wondering what I'm doing with a name like Zubeida Goolam. It's an icebreaker for me. It's been an icebreaker for me my entire life, right? So I didn't realize that I wasn't born free until 1994. I was like, what? So I'm not free. So what have I been all of this time? Because I felt kind of free at the time. So this is a picture of my grandfather and my grandmother. That's Mr. Goolam. And that's his wife, Mrs. Goolam. That's the best picture I have of her, sadly. But they met and got married and went to jail subsequently because at the time it was seen as an immoral act to marry through the race lines. They didn't give a shit though. So, I mean, they got married, they had kids, and by the time they both passed, they had a ton of grandkids. So he's of Pakistani heritage, by the way. His family moved here when he was an infant. And he grew up in Bulwer. Bulwer is on the base of the Drakensberg. I don't know how well you guys know KZN, but I grew up in the Berg. And these are their kids. This is what happens when an Indian marries a black person. They're beautiful. These are my aunts and uncles, and this is myself and my dad. So as you can see, we're not a usual Goolam Muslim family. We don't look like I certainly don't look like that. There are tons of stories around just how people think I look. And then when they see me, they're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? So I'd tell you those stories, but we'd be here forever. So my dad followed in his dad's footsteps and also fell in love with a Zulu woman, and hence I look the way that I do. This confused the government a lot at the time. They didn't know how to categorize me as a human being. So my birth certificate says other Asian. I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know what it means. So I'm other Asian according to the government pre-1994. So when I said I didn't know I was born free, I thought it was normal for us to be at all Indian schools in 1986 when I started school. This wasn't normal. It's because the government couldn't really categorize me. So they're like, you go to Indian schools. And that was normal for me because, like, my family looks Indian. Well, some of them. Some of them look like me. Some of them look colored. Some of them look the way they look just because that's what happens with genetics. Also, the school drills that we had, I don't know if you guys remember school drills. I'm trying to gauge the age in this room, and I'm struggling a bit. If you remember in the 1980s, we used to have school drills, and what this meant that you'd listen out for the sirens, and those sirens meant you either get under the desk, right, mid-maths class, get under the desk, or you get out in a single file and you go line up. We thought this was normal and this was the way school was, but we didn't realize that our country was at the brink of war. I enjoyed that because it meant I got to giggle with my friends under the desk and not actually do any work. And did you realize this danger Ghafar sign didn't say Ingozi in the 80s? It just said danger Ghafar. They didn't care whether if you were black, it meant that Ingozi, like if you didn't understand that, they basically wanted us to get into Ingozi situations. They didn't give a shit. And then I also didn't realize that the day we went to a beach in Natal. They were Indians only beaches. And we got there and my brother and I couldn't get on with the rest of our family. And my uncles obviously threw a fit about it and they fought about it. I didn't understand that. I thought it was just a bunch of angry adults. But they weren't angry. They were actually fighting against discrimination. Needless to say, the kind of content that we were seeing, or I was seeing at the time, was very also distorted. Luckily, we didn't watch a lot of TV. There was a lot of playtime. But TV meant that we were watching Spider-Man, fake Spider-Man. We had to simulcast, well, the English or Zulu version of the cartoons or the content that we were watching was simulcast on radio. So you had to have your radio on at the same time as your TV so that you could watch television and get what they're saying. Lord forbid if the radio was being used by your gogo somewhere listening to Radio Zulu, then you had to kind of decipher what the hell Rabubi was doing that day. You had no idea what he was doing. And like I said, luckily we would have other things besides just watching TV. TV would go off at 12 o'clock and that you'd see this. It says, fuck off this bed date. Right, so you had to find other things to do in the meantime, right? This ball was the bane of our existence because it's like, oh, there's no more TV. So we'd go out and we'd find something to do. A lot of the time it was just playing. So then whatever content was then shown to us was a bit weird if I think about it now. The next example I'm going to show you is kind of strange because you'll see why. So it's this ad, if you know and remember this.
Coffee and Cremora. Also, Cremora. Ah, where did she put it? She knows I like my Cremora. Now she hides it.
Cremora. Tastes so rich and creamy. You'd expect to find it in the fridge.
Tandy, there's no Cremora in the fridge.
It's not inside, it's on top.
It's not inside, it's on top.
I see you.
Coffee and Cremora. Yep, Cremora. Where'd she put it? Knows I like my Cremora. Now she hides it.
Cremora, the non-dairy creamer. It tastes so rich and creamy. You'll expect to find it in the refrigerator.
And there's no Cremora in the refrigerator.
It's not inside, it's on top.
It's not inside, it's on top.
Cremora.
Is there any reason that this had to be, this is the exact same script? Yeah. It's just a black family, there's a Tandy and there's an Ann, right? I'm not too sure what the reasoning was behind this. I tried to read the comments at the bottom of the YouTube. A lot of it was just racist shit, so I left that out. But I mean, this is what we were dealing with at the time. There's a ton of other examples, but I think this stuck out to me because if you were going to do a TVC today, you'd do it in different languages, right? And English seems to dominate because we've got so many other languages to actually represent in our country. Then came 1994, which then I realized, wow, I'm free. What does that even mean? I was chatting to Nico earlier on, and he was kind of delving into the fact that we were the first generation to actually experience freedom. So we were this generation that was like, okay, now you're free. What are you going to do about it? We're like, we don't know how to be free. Like, what does this even mean? Can we just figure it out? And we did. We figured it out. This year kind of turned everything upside down in a good way, in a bad way as well. It meant, so the buzzword is that we're free. And then for a 14-year-old, I was 14 at the time, I turned 14, 94. Now you know how old I am. This meant that we needed to start making way to show the generation before us and the generation before them what they were fighting for and to kind of make that real. That put a lot of pressure on us. That meant our parents expected us to become doctors. They expected us to now, become presidents of the country. It was hard. It also meant that we got to go to multiracial schools where we spoke a lot more English, a lot more posh English. I mean, we'd get home and start speaking English to each other, which is not a normal thing. It's like, I come from a Zulu-speaking family, and sikhuluma isiZulu endlini. So you're going to get home after a week at school and you're going to start speaking English. Your parents are like, shut up. We called each other Maltese because that's the way that you spoke to each other as kids that went to schools like that. And we started defining what this Rainbow Nation actually meant. All right. I discovered this is chicken a la king. I grew up eating curry all day, every day, right? This in boarding school was, what? This is white food. Why doesn't it have any color? This was interesting for me. This and lasagna and all of those other things. So we kind of just went into this world that we'd never been exposed to before. It was bizarre at times. At times it was interesting. A lot of the time it was interesting. The content we were starting to see also changed. So we were also defining what the music was going to be. So the likes of Kwaito started to become a thing. If you remember that this kind of music defined where you were, defined, right, I knew this would happen. So, did you guys know that Kwaito is actually, shall I just let this play? So, sorry guys, I'll play it later. So Kwaito is actually derived from the Afrikaans word kwaai, which means angry. I found that out a couple of days ago when I was writing this. I'm like, so what do we? It's also slang for cool, though. It's kwaai. All right, yeah, you did say that. So it's also cool. So you know what happened when Kwaito hit the scene. You know what we were wearing at the time. It was just cool. And I think, I'm not too sure which agency this was, where they managed to find what the temperature at the time of the nation was. You know, I'll give you a bit of context of it. Again, this is a long time ago. Phones used to work like this. My grandfather had a shop in the village. It wasn't even a village. It was super, super rural. He had a shop, and everybody around that rural area would come to the shop to actually make a phone call or wait for a phone call. And that's like hundreds of people just coming to this one place to wait for a phone call from a loved one. So what Telkom did at the time is they were starting to install phones in people's houses, and they picked up on this one really beautiful insight, and this was the result of it.
Last year, Telkom gave millions of people a new way to say hello. This year, expect a little more from us.
Okay, so you see how that's such a wonderful insight. It's so simple. The execution was simple. What I'm not going to do today is brag about what BRANDTRUTH does. You guys can go and check us out. So I'm telling you the stories that I've experienced and where we are now and what I expect the future to be. Okay, just in case you were expecting BRANDTRUTH credentials, I'm sorry. And then what Sasol did here is they turned what was a very simple execution into, they colloquialized it, and it became the Nike Just Do It for them. Because if you say this word, you kind of know what brand it's linked to. And it all started with this little
look.
Pump up your performance with Sasol Super 100.
That's the English version. This is the cooler version, sorry.
Windy, 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 windy. I'm a check and something very smart. I'm a poco. Ha Stronsky. Wow. Yeah. Windy, windy. Oh, Bafana. What do I get? Fish. What do I get? Laduma William.
When we feel proud of South African performance.
Oh, my cricket boys. Sorry, Hansi. Sorry, boys. Next time.
Perhaps we should remember which great South African performer got there first.
I'm a Tlutlu. That's all today. That's all forever. Shabaya.
Sasol Super 100.
Windy.
Pump up your performance.
So I don't know what was happening in South Africa then in terms of just like double barreling a word. Mafana, makroka, makluk. It's like, I don't know, did it make things more awesome just by saying them twice? It was bizarre. Anyways, this kind of colloquialized the brand and brought it to the mass market. It's amazing how marketers go, oh, we need to speak to the mass market. They actually mean black people. You know, it's just like, okay, just say blacks. We don't really care, right? Then this is now when we were starting to realize what freedom was and that we actually are able to talk about the difficulties that we're experiencing as a nation. And SABC 1 at the time. So I don't know if you guys remember CCV. Who remembers CCV? Hands up, please. You don't be shy, guys. CCV, join our world. Right? That was TV for the masses, right? So it went from CCV to SABC 1. In fact, before it was CCV, it went from TV1. Do you remember that? TV1 and TV2 and TV3, yes? Bob TV. I don't remember Bob TV. I wasn't in the market. It was also a regional TV station. Yeah, because we didn't get it in KZN. We just had. So what SABC 1 did so cleverly, I don't know who the brand manager was at the time, but I know Teboho Mahlatsi did he creatively directed this piece of art, and you remember this.
look the same.
Thank you.
Showcasing real South African stories. It's too bad SABC is not doing stuff like this anymore. It's really sad. Because it's such an important platform that they have to be able to tell such stories. But then we've got, what's that, 161? And Moja Love, I discovered. She's like, what? Anyways, that's a story for another day. But then, like I said, this speaks to me because it just brought the social ills to the fore without that much of a script either. You just, you get it. And I think for the first time as well, the minority saw what a day in the life of Ulova meant, you know. So, Sipingogu, where are we and where are we going? So I went to the Luries last week for the first time in my entire career. I've been in advertising or in this industry for over 20 years. And the brands that I worked on, so the first brand I worked on was Peter Stuyvesant, a BAT brand and a regulated brand as well, which meant that none of the stuff or the work that we did could be entered for Luries. So I did that for a while, and then after that I dabbled in a bit of not above the line, never above the line actually, funny enough. It was always the other lines besides above the line. So I never got to go to the Luries, and now this was the first year. I must say it was a bit disappointing. Because I'm older now, so the party scene is not really a vibe for me. I got to sleep at 10 o'clock. So I got to miss out on the big parties, but that's not what I was there for. I was there to look at what content was or what the theme was and what was being awarded. And lots of above-the-line stuff. I'm in digital, if you guys didn't know, and that's what we do. We do storytelling within the digital space. That's where the world is moving. We all know that. And there wasn't a lot of work that actually spoke to what that means, you know, in the bigger scheme of things. They talked about integrated campaigns and they were awarding integrated campaigns, but integrated means that digital needs to be in there, right? Digital is still like an afterthought. It's like, oh shit, we need to do digital. And I think that's the failure of most campaigns, if anything. So their theme was around telling better stories this year. Who went to the Luries? Who watched what was, were you there? What did it inspire you? You don't remember anything? You was there, but you weren't there. It's been known to happen. Did anyone follow any of the awarded agencies or any of that stuff? FCB got a lot of awards, right? TBWA they scooped a lot of awards. So the theme about also telling better stories means that it's also about brands doing good and brands actually standing for purpose, because a lot of the time, or previously, it was all about advertising and selling products. Now it's moved to more purpose stuff. You know, we not treating our consumers like consumers, we're treating them like citizens, you know, that are responsible for the planet that we live in, from a social perspective, from all kinds of issues. So I told you where we're going. No, I haven't. I'm about to unfold to you where we're going, where I think we're going. So there's this thing called cultural capital, which I believe a lot in, and that's kind of where I want to settle for a little bit and just unpack for you guys. So I go to a conference called the Future of Storytelling in New York every year. I've been lucky enough to go every year. Not this year, unfortunately, because they've moved it out to the next year. So what this conference does is it brings together industry minds, and they talk about tech, they talk about content, and they talk about how they see the world changing based on the content and the tech that we're using. So last year, no, it wasn't last year, it was the year before, I was lucky enough to sit in a session with the guy called Steve Stout. And it was quite by chance, because you choose the people that you want to see. And starting a business is hard work, so you don't have time to be sitting and choosing speakers. So I randomly picked a speaker, and I ended up with Steve Stout. This is not him, by the way. Do you guys know who this is? So this is Run DMC. They are the forefathers of hip hop. They started hip hop basically. So Steve Stout he's an ex-Sony executive, and he used to sign people like Mariah Carey and all of these other kind of big R&B and hip hop stars. And he told a very interesting story about this group specifically, Run DMC and Adidas. I don't know if you guys know the story. Yeah. You know the story? No? Let me tell you a story. Okay, so Adidas was not doing very well in the 80s. So the likes of Nike and Reebok and them being involved in like sports and all these other kind of where you'd expect them to be, Adidas wasn't really doing very well. So their marketing manager was a guy called Angelo Anastasio, right? And he was culturally curious, if you may. So he was like, heck, we're not doing so well, but we're doing well in this one part of of North America. Why is that? So something happened, chatted to people, and they invited him to a concert which Run DMC was doing at Madison Square Garden, right? This is when hip hop was starting to just make its way through. Sorry, do you need some air? And so what happened was they invited him on stage, and they were doing the song called Me and My Adidas, which is a song that talks about where my Adidas has taken me. And I think it was Rush, or one of the three members of the group, said to the 20,000 strong audience, everybody wave your Adidas in the air, and 20,000 people waved their Adidas in the air. And that's where Angelo Anastasio was like, shit, we've got something here. And they were the first hip-hop and rap group that actually got endorsed by a brand. So they started this stuff. I saw AKA on stage the other day, and he was going on about Reebok. I'm like, do you know what happened that day? And it's such a simple thing, culture, right? It's so subliminal, though. You need to kind of understand what's happening to be able to jump on it as a brand. You can't just do it, though. You need to be very cognizant of what's happening at the time. Culture has always been there, and when I say culture, I don't mean like Zulu, Xhosa, the rest, you know. Sorry, I don't mean that way. I mean Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho. It's about common interests and what those common interests mean to all of us, right? So that's just the result of that, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing story to tell as well. So brands need to understand what the culture at the time is, and I said this again, so I feel like I'm repeating myself. It's the forever currency. It really is the forever currency, and it's the thing that's actually driving financial currency. So without understanding what the cultural currency is, you're really dead in the water, because that's with the world of social media and the way we're moving, things are shared so quickly that if you as a brand don't jump onto that thing in a clever way, by the way, you get lost. So we're all about not telling the story, but actually starting the story. And that's a very important thing, because when you start to tell the story, you're starting to dictate what it's going to be. Your people are your media. Your people will push that naturally for you. Then I've always struggled with this in my career, demographics. It's like, okay, they live in Soweto, they have one TV, they have a microwave, they have a fridge, and they have this kind of an income. Demographics is a bunch of bullshit for me, I'm going to say. I say shit a lot, sorry, if you didn't notice. People come together because of common interests, right? It doesn't matter whether I'm living in Kuruman or I'm living in the middle of Sandton. If we have common interests, then we are part of the same kind of culture or tribe. And understanding that for you is as a brand or as people that tell stories becomes a little bit easier. It's about understanding what people are interested in. Also remember that Apple didn't buy Beats the headphones. They actually bought the culture, right? They bought what it meant to be in hip hop, and that kind of launched their streaming business as well and did really very well. And then there's the elephant in the room, which I'm gonna just unpack really quickly. Diversity in our industry is still something that we struggle with. I know this because I see it in boardrooms, I see it in the creatives that are available to tell the story with me. I see it all the time. I got into advertising not knowing how the hell or where the hell to find it. You know, it was like, I know I want to be in creative, but I don't know where to find it because it's not something that was easily available in university or in tech, whatever tech is called now. So I studied a bit of marketing and I fell into advertising. Not by mistake, I think it was all lined up because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And if there were more opportunities open to people who, you know, want to get involved in the creative industry, I think we'd have a very different story to tell. I think we'd have a lot more creatives that are able to express themselves in the way that we need them to tell the story with us. I struggle a lot. I head up creative at the agency, and this is something that I'm actively trying to change. This is the first step towards doing that, is getting people to understand the industry that we work in and that it's actually fun and that we do work sometimes. So diversity is also not about, it's not about having one black person in a boardroom. I do not represent all Indian people in the room. Seriously, I don't. It's about understanding the minorities and understanding the marginalized people and having each voice or having more than one voice in a room to actually start bringing things to the fore. I don't think we're doing that. It was a big discussion at the Louis, diversity, but how are you doing something to actually actively change that? I'll give big ups to Xolisa, who heads up he's the ECD of Joe Public, gets it right. I see all of these creatives and I'm going to steal them from him. You can tell him I said that. So this is now, I'm going to unpack a bit of what the Do Good formula is as well. So this is what brands need to start doing and us as storytellers need to understand so that we start creating those tangible, beautiful stories. So a brand needs to know its purpose, right? Know what you stand for. And I've got a case study at the end which kind of just wraps that up. If you know your purpose, you know what kind of culture, what the insight is that's going to drive your purpose, if anything. So treat people as citizens, not as consumers. I said this already. Like, people are not stupid. We're not stupid. We're not there to just consume. We're there to drive a purpose, right? Find your allies. Find your allies. That's as simple as that gets. Understand that people are the new media, right? You and I sitting all in this room are going to reflect whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's on our phones, whether it's on our social media, whether it's anywhere. We are the new media. Lead with the cool. So like I said, start the conversation. Don't tell it, just start the conversation. Also back up your promise with proof. People call bullshit on stuff a lot. It's like, you're telling me that you do this and you stand for this, but where's the proof? You know, what is it changing? And that's what I struggled with the campaigns that were being awarded at the Louis. I'm like, so you got a million likes, so you got XYZ clicks, so many people saw this, but what behavior is it changing? What is it doing to move society forward? And I didn't really get that. I didn't get a sense of what that was. And then don't advertise, solve problems. We've all got problems. If if a brand is able to help solve a problem, then you've got half the job done, right? And also creating an impact. You know you've made it once you're starting to organically create an impact, not bought impact, not all of this other nonsense that's out there where people are actively talking about the stuff that you do. I said I would show you a case study of that and how I feel like I don't know any other brand in South Africa yet that's doing this level of stuff.
If people say your dreams are crazy, if they laugh at what you think you can do, good. Stay that way. Because what non-believers fail to understand is that calling a dream crazy is not an insult. It's a compliment. Don't try to be the fastest runner in your school or the fastest in the world. Be the fastest ever. Don't picture yourself wearing OBJ's jersey. Picture OBJ wearing yours. Don't settle for homecoming queen or linebacker. Do both. Lose 120 pounds and become an Ironman after beating a brain tumor. Don't believe you have to be like anybody to be somebody. If you're born a refugee, don't let it stop you from playing soccer for the national team at age 16. Don't become the best basketball player on the planet. Be bigger than basketball. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. When they talk about the greatest team in the history of the sport, make sure it's your team. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football. Play at the highest level. And if you're a girl from Compton, don't just become a tennis player. Become the greatest athlete ever. Yeah, that's more like it. So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
This. So I'm not just a girl from Bulwer. I'm a girl that started her own agency and about to change shit. So I'm gonna do a little bit of bragging. So our main client is FNB. They actually helped us start out our agency. I started the agency with a friend of mine called Wayne Fleming. You'll see him one day. But I mean, we started with the idea that this is the change that we're wanting to make in our industry. He's white, by the way, and Afrikaans. I'm Indian, as you can see. And this is one of the campaigns that I think stand out for me. I'm not going to talk about it. I'll just show you a video because it's really awesome. It's called Black Friday. We did this for Black Friday last year, and we kind of cut through the clutter. This is what you call an integrated digital campaign. I hope you enjoy it.
The purpose of today is really owning Black Friday through a very unique way. We've created a hashtag called Black Friday Me.
To take that hashtag and turn it into a verb or turn it into something where FNB is assisting someone, is helping someone.
So we're seeing people responding with examples of, hey, my bank balance is low, can at FNB SA please Black Friday me? And now we're sliding into their DMs and surprising and delighting them with various rewards, gifts, prizes.
So it's not just about surprise and delight, but can we find key messages and use the Black Friday Me verb in order to just create some longevity for this and actually go back to our core business offering of how can we help you?
The teaser of Black Friday Me hashtag went onto our billboards in Joburg and one in Cape Town just to seed the hashtag, and today we've got some lovely live billboards running of the conversations that we've been jumping into.
Somebody is wanting to get married and they want to get Black Friday, and our response was a little shimmy and looking forward to being invited to your wedding.
We have some things like a Twitter promoted trend and a first view that we've bought and secured for the day that was really important for us. We wanted to be first. It's just quite interesting for a bank to own a day like this.
FNB has always been a bank that does more. Today is all about that. It's about giving a little bit more, and something that's going to spread not only to the individual that we're touching, but to their families.
We have to do this again. We really have to do this again. So that won us a couple of awards. We're not in it to win awards. We're there to, just do great work and also just understand what's happening on the ground. As a result, FNB has become a thing. People actually, FNB, guys! Yes, that's us. Thank you. What's also, I don't know if it's disheartening, but I think if you're being, we got recognized by being a nominee at the Shorty Awards in New York, which we attended this year. That's before we even got recognized in South Africa. So I think we're doing something right? That's all I got to brag about today from Brand Truth. And that's just what I am, I guess. And ngiyabonga bafowethu. Sure. Thank you.
If you've got stuff you've jotted down during the session you want to share, you can share, or if you have it as a question, you can ask a question. But the floor is open, and then I'll just take people as you have a question. But the whole thing about it is that the reason we created Marketing Fridays, and by we is I, but we, in theory, in my head. But the reason we created Marketing Fridays is that these conversations need to happen. You need to then speak and say, listen, this, I want to find out why you did that, or what's your views on this, or how did you do this, or what's your take on that, and let's keep it moving. So let's start the questions.
For me, it's about leaving your ego at the door. A lot of the time, marketers are there to just get there and try to make a difference without, and it's all about them, understanding that it's actually about the brand and about the people that you're trying to communicate to, from an agency perspective, it's about also just, with marketing you have, as somebody who works in marketing, you've got a bigger job to do that's like to create business for the company or the corporate that you're working for. And advertising plays kind of a small little role in that. And as people in the industry, in the marketing, agency part of things, you need to understand that there's a bigger job that they're trying to do and try to help them to just fix that, understanding that those are all of the other things that they faced with from a business perspective. If you are on the client side, open yourself up to creativity, be bold. I think it's all about being bold now, and not just being, because we like to work with people that want to do big things and are open to doing big things. Yeah, and just be brave and do, because you don't do big things by being safe, by playing it safe. So from both client and agency side, I think those are things you need to possess. I hope that answers your question. Sure, that's a difficult question to answer, because I mean there's a varying amount of reasons why there's underrepresentation, and the one that I highlighted is the fact that not a lot of our melanated people understand the industry that we're in. So it's about almost opening the floodgates and saying, come, let's do this together, and this is how it actually works. Do you know what I mean? And also just speaking up. Like I said, it doesn't, one person doesn't represent an entire race, right? But even if there is that one person, your voice needs to be strong and loud enough that they actually listen to you. So it's, like I said, it's a number of things that we need to actively just also be aware of as abantu abamnyama. It's like, guys, let's do this together. Let's understand that it's also something that we need to stick together with and support each other with. Yes. I said that we live in a digital age, so everything starts here first. Everybody has a mobile phone. Most people have smart mobile phones, if anything, entry-level smartphones. So we're able to view content on that. We've got computers more than ever before. So I feel like strategies should actually start with digital, because it shouldn't start with the TVC, because that doesn't really land the message. That's 10 seconds, that's at most 30 seconds of you trying to push your message across. Unless you can rewind and fast forward, but still it's not telling the story that well, right? You get to unpack the story within digital platforms. So you go onto YouTube to watch the full story, you go onto Twitter and you see people are actually talking about it. So that's what I meant by saying that digital needs to be a focus where strategies should actually be driven from. Digital storytelling is about understanding the platforms that your consumer is consuming the content at, and then creating the content strategically for those different platforms. So somebody who is on YouTube obviously is watching video, so we need to create what that strategically. So Christelle does that, where she creates message architecture, as we call it, that then delves into each platform and what that content is going to look like. So I'll give an example. Springboks, we're working on Springboks currently, and we collaborate with an agency called Grid, and they do the above the line and all the fancy big stuff that goes on radio and TV, and then we execute it, and we look at what the idea is, and then start to, tell stories unfolding on the digital platform. So the interesting thing is that we get to speak to the box, and the theme is about words make a difference, or what was it? Words of greatness. Sorry, words of greatness, and what this means for the team, and what it means for South Africa, and what it means for the World Cup. And then we start showing these stories on digital, on the different platforms. So it's that kind of, digital gives you the opportunity to actually expand on what it is that your message is. And that's the magic of it, really, because you can't do that on TV unless you've got millions and millions. As a female, you're at the bottom of the food chain, right? As a black female, you even way there. So we're trying to climb up and clamber out of that pit of the bottom of the food chain, and I think we're doing pretty well, and we need to just keep it going. And it's the end of Women's Month. Hey! Show him the door! Do you have a problem? Like, what the hell? It's so, if you, like I said, if you're in marketing, you need to understand what the purpose of your brand is, and understand that that's what you stand for as a brand. I think a lot of the time we're just doing wishy-washy things that really don't make an impact and don't really mean anything to anybody. I agree with you when you say that the seasonality of things come and go. There's no real longevity. I feel like 16 days of activism against women and child abuse. 16 days? Are you kidding me? That's a social issue that we should be talking about every day. And for the fact is that there's no real brand that's run with it as something that they stand for is worrying, because that means that it's just a seasonal thing. You can't have a social issue that happens every day that is a seasonal thing that happens for 16 days. Youth Month, youth is, I'm sitting with youth, you know, we struggle with employment. There's so many ills with the youth currently, drugs, nyaupe, like there's a variation of things. And that's not something that a month will solve, you know. So until we have brands that are able to run with it, whether it means you blow your budget and that's what you stand for, that's what they need to do. And until I see that, I'm with you. Okay. Look, I don't know if you know this, but we're 3 years old. We started, I didn't say that because I said I'm not going to talk about us. We are 3 years old, and those are things that we're actively trying to figure out in our strategy. Whether it's the way we communicate, we're currently working on updating our website, because I feel like, or we feel like it doesn't really say what it is that we do, and we would like to continuously talk about the work that we do, but currently we're focusing on just the work so that it's beautiful enough and understandable enough to get people to talk about it and to understand what it is. So that's something I think we're actively doing. I don't think we're doing it well enough as yet, if I'm to be honest. Because it's, what's the saying about the plumber's pipes and them never being fixed? That's pretty much what we're dealing with.
All right,
I hope that answers your question.
We are now at 10:10, so we're 10 minutes over.
Okay.
So we do need to wrap up. Is there anyone who hasn't said anything that wants to
Like
add
a
something
critical
before?
question.
Yeah, just one thing, otherwise we can wrap up.
I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
Would you see me again? Would you pay to see me speak again?